Hey, this is Victor with VentoBot, and on today's episode of Don't Kill the Messenger, I have a very special guest, Pia Silva, and she is going to be talking to us about how to badass our brand. I originally found her by finding her book online, and then I started following her ever since, and that's really helped me a lot. So today, I welcome to the show, Pia. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Victor. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So I know we wanted to really dive into this, and I'd love to get started with how, I guess, what your philosophy is on when it comes to branding and how to really start standing out.
Yeah, I don't talk about just branding. I talk about
Right.
badass branding.
Right.
And,
There you go.
the concept of branding is so elusive. People have varying understandings of it. It's not a concrete thing. A lot of people mistakenly think that branding is your logo and your website. Some people, a little more advanced, they think it's just your message. I love to subscribe to, I think it was Jeff Bezos who said it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. I think that's a nice way to describe it. But
Yeah.
I have personally defined it, specifically badass brands, as having two critical characteristics. One, it magnetically attracts ideal clients and is okay with repelling everybody else. And two, it's able to charge a premium price and still win the business. So they're able to charge more than the competition and still win the business. So my definition is really around what the brand is able to do. That's how you know that you have a badass brand, when it does those two things.
Great. I love it. So when it's able to attract and repel not the right people and attract the right people, and then really able to help you stand out and people be okay with, like, hey, I'm more it's a premium service compared to everyone else. So
Yeah.
I love it. So then what would you say, because I know you definitely do, I've seen kind of how you've evolved since the last couple of years here. Where would you say you are now? Like, how is a brand supposed to evolve with somebody? Or I guess, like, what's your take on something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because my brand, especially in the last year or two, has been evolving quite a bit as I learn more, as my business grows, and I want to keep sharing the things that I'm learning and kind of take my audience along for the journey. There's something to be said for sticking with a clear, cohesive, concise message, but that can result in not in somewhat being stagnant. So I think, and especially because, as entrepreneurs, we are usually growing and learning and evolving. And so I think it's important for your brand and your message to kind of grow and evolve with you. But that doesn't mean completely changing everything every 6 months or a year. It means, being willing to take a look at what you're currently doing and how it's serving your audience, and evolving and pivoting. So I would say we're kind of every 6 to 12 months going through a slight rebrand. It's not always a complete change, but it's definitely up-leveling our message for various reasons. And the number one reason anyone should evolve their brand or relook at it is if their goals are changing and evolving. So always start with, well, what's the goal? You don't need to just rebrand for the sake of rebranding. I think people make that mistake. They think, oh, I've had this brand for a while, so now it's time to change it. I think it's a terrible reason to rebrand. If you have a reason and a goal, that's a great place to start.
And I have a feeling you mean something very specific when you say goal. Like, this isn't, and I think you are a strong believer in this, where when it comes to the brand is really working for you and helping your business work for you, because I know you're all about freedom, and it's important to make sure that main, at least for you, is the main goal, compared to, like, I just want to grow the business. Am I correct in assuming that? Or
Yeah. I mean, growing a business can mean a lot of things to different people. So that's a great way to put it, Victor. It's, what is success to you? So success for me is all about freedom and flexibility. So every year, I have been more cognizant of increasing the profitability of my company. So taking home more and working fewer hours. So that creates more and more flexibility. So not necessarily growing top line revenue which doesn't always give you more freedom and more profitability.
Right.
Sometimes it actually takes away your freedom and makes you less profitable. So people walk around, touting their high numbers, but they're not really taking anything home and they're working all the time. That's not success to me. Maybe it is to them. But that's what I mean by starting with the goal and working backwards.
No, I love that. And I mean, I feel like, when this episode is about to release, we're still going to be in this whole like time
Crazy.
of,
Yep.
it's like a pivoting time. It's a great, I see it as so much opportunity happening because so many people have been, I guess, thrown into this online space, and clients that were more focused on live events and growing their business that way, and that's how they've interacted, which is a fantastic way to do it, but they never really did anything online. And then as we started to do something, when all this happened, it was kind of like I'm kind of happy that we started to add that component because it's helped us, but I feel like it's only easier because they had the brand first. At least in terms of the way I'm thinking about it is like people knew them already as a positioned person, an expert in that industry, like the go-to really. So and I mean, I'm personally biased to like ads myself. However, I know for you, what experiences do you have like that? Would you say someone were to start to grow online first or grow in person first as far as creating like a brand, or does it make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on where you're starting from. So, and what kind of business you run. So I tend to work with small service businesses. So, individuals selling their services, selling their expertise. I personally recommend, because I think it's a good business model and a good business plan, to start with not necessarily physically in person, but services where you are servicing one-on-one clients at very.
Looks like we lost your audio there for a second.
Oh.
Yeah.
Am I back?
No, still.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Hold on. There we go. It sounds like I think I got you back.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what was I saying?
We're saying like in person.
Yeah. So I focus on these service businesses. Now, that's really about working one-on-one with clients. So actually done for you services in some capacity. That doesn't have to be done in person most of the time, but I'm still talking about a premium service where you're delivering one-to-one. I think that is a good first step for anybody because it's easy to generate cash quickly, and it's a really good way to build your process, your philosophy, your approach, all of those things before you go to the one-to-many space, which I think a lot of people associate with online businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Component. I think too many people try to go one-to-many before they've done one-to-one, and that's where you run into trouble because you haven't built any credibility, you haven't built a reputation, you haven't had the time to create any sort of reputation online through content, and then you're kind of struggling to sell things without that backing. So it's a 1-2 step in my experience.
Right. So that absolutely makes sense, and I love that as well. I know that's originally how we started. Right, we did a lot of like one-to-one, and we started to kind of get it known in a certain community. And then when we started to branch out, it was a little bit easier because we could leverage that old community and say, like these are the people that we've worked with in the past. You can reach out to them, and they had fantastic things to say about us. So, and then that just really helped us when we did make that transition online. And I would say I may have started online faster than I probably should have. But I know that was definitely one of the things, and a lot of people listening are more in the space of, they're either very successful online right now or they're very successful in person right now. And they don't really have a combination of the two. And I personally believe everyone should have a combination of the two. So
I completely agree. And actually, I really talk about that as short and long-term marketing. So when I think of people who are, for example, networking in person, that's a form of marketing. That's short-term marketing though. That's for clients now. You're building relationships. They might come to you in the future, but you will always have to network for that to work. That's why
Right.
you want to do online marketing as well, because that's building the platform for long-term clients so that you aren't pounding the pavement forever. So you kind of have to do both because one of them takes a lot longer to find traction than the other.
Yes. Where would you say, what do you believe before I give, I guess, my opinion on it of like which one takes longer?
Oh, well, I think online reputation building takes much longer. You can connect with one person in face to face or even online and build a relationship and sell them something, possibly if they need it, in one phone call.
True.
So, that's not the same. And that can happen kind of through content, but the majority of people who are ingesting your content, they're going to get to know you over a period of time, and then they're going to come to you when they're ready. And that just takes a lot longer. That's my opinion. Do you agree or disagree?
So that's funny. My thought on it is I like the online version more just because I can do it faster. But yes, there is more touch points. I think that's what you're getting at. I do have to have more touch points online to be able to,
which takes time to create, I think,
right.
is my point. Yeah.
Exactly. So like, I see where you're going. Like I can definitely meet someone and at like a live event, for example, if I was speaking there and then interact with people, and then the most ideal people after I talk, they have questions. They want to get to know me a little bit more. And then, that I could definitely say like, it sounds like you need this and let's have a conversation around that. Whereas that was like maybe 2 interactions compared to online where it maybe like 7 to 30. But
right.
I could also, the only reason I say I like online is because I can do that. Like I can pay and do that faster compared to live events. I have to travel. So I understand.
Because you have an amazing funnel and all the know-how and expertise already set up. So now you're in a position to be able to scale that and for that to work really well. But when people don't have anything, well, they should hire someone like you to set it up for them. But they still, they're kind of starting from zero. They're not going to get that first client right away, most likely. More
absolutely.
likely, handshaking with someone who needs their services is going to turn into a client faster.
That makes absolute sense, and I love that. So, where would you say? I guess, what are some key, components to really start to help someone identify if they have like a taped together brand, or if they have like intention behind it, or if it was just kind of thrust upon them because they got known that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think some symptoms of having I call it a Frankenstein brand, like something where it just kind of happened. You didn't mean for it to happen.
Yeah.
Some symptoms of it are, you struggle in how to market your message or who to target because you don't have clarity around who you should be speaking to and why. You spend a lot of time pitching and doing a lot of free work and talking to a lot of people trying to convince them to hire you. You do all of these things because you aren't positioned as an authority so that people are actually looking to hire you. You have to go out and you have to kind of convince, and that's a lot of effort. So anybody who is spending a lot of time doing that and they're not getting results from it, probably could look at their brand.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Luckily, it's funny because I think in that one community that I left, I was definitely known for something specific, and it was not necessarily who I liked working with. And I think this kind of ties back into freedom. It's like I understood what I wanted to do and how I wanted to work with people, and that wasn't necessarily the way, and it was kind of thrust upon me. I remember that. Yeah, and I was kind of like, and so like I had to separate myself to the point where it was just like I don't do that anymore or anything like that. And I think that kind of plays into what you were saying. Like it evolved as I evolved and really became more clear on who it was that I really helped. So for sure, a lot of good things here. But do you have anything else, I guess, as far as where you're at now? Like what have you seen change, or what have you done to really help yourself get to the level that you're at this point in time compared to like a year or 2 ago?
Let's see, a year or 2 ago, I have to like things, excuse me. I'm a very active person in my business. So I'm like constantly pushing the limits of where we're going and like looking to expand to new heights and all of that. So gosh, 2 years ago, it was like almost not a completely different business, but I was at the beginning of, another ascent. You know, I think the place that I've landed recently is that I am helping people not only badass their brand, and think about how to really be smart and efficient about how they package their services, how they sell, how they price them, how they talk about them, all of these things. I'm all about just how to get super, super efficient so you can be really profitable, because that's how you get freedom. So efficiency, profitability, freedom. But pairing that with how to create an online reputation through content, which I still believe is king. I don't believe any of these people who say, oh, you don't need a blog, or you don't need yes, you do. Look at any person who says that and go find their blog and their, you know, their podcast and whatever it is. I can't believe people are talking about that. It's such a marketing thing. But anyway, my point is, you know, I know that there are ways to do business, and I'm not saying you can't do business other ways, but the long-term really powerful strategy is about creating your, you know, creating your big ass footprint in the world and saying, this is like what I know, this is what I do. And if you do that enough, you will create the momentum of people coming to you. And I think that's what everyone's looking for. So I'm really trying to carry that flag right now and tell people, like, you can deem yourself an expert and become one at the same time.
Yeah.
Authority. We were talking about authority.
Right. Yeah. Authority. Yeah. So no, I definitely agree with that. So it's, I would say,
like what you're doing here, you know, I mean, you're doing that here, and I think it's brilliant.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And I know, I mean, just some of the things that we've been able to help people do as well. It's just help them transition into that online, or really add this component to it. Because I know, it can be confusing. Like you mentioned, like I know it like the back of my hand. So I was able to, the reason I'm biased toward it is because I'm able to implement it really quickly compared to others. So yeah, it's like, to me, it's kind of like, and I feel like people might fall into this, like the whole expert's curse, where like, they're like, well, that's simple. Like, why would people really need to know that? But it's oftentimes what I found is some of those thoughts tends to be one of the biggest questions that, you know, our audiences have. It's like, to us, they seem super simple and easy. And it's like, doesn't everyone know that? Compared to, on the other side, they're thinking like, how did you do that? You know, like, how do you do something like that? So I guess, can you speak a little bit more to really not just creating that brand and scaling it, but really moving into a place of, does it ever really separate from you? Or is it more of like a personal brand, or does it become more of like a company thing and then you're with that company?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an individual choice, again, based on what your goals are. You know, just to speak really quickly to what you're saying, because I think it's so true. And so many people have this pitfall, not realizing that a lot of the value that you have to offer is the thing that you think is easiest. Like, sometimes the most valuable thing you have to offer is something that's really dumb and easy to you. And that's just shows that you know it like the back of your hand. So I really try to remind people that just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not super valuable. And a lot of people undervalue what they have to sell because they don't get the value. But in terms of, you know, whether or not it's a business versus your personal brand versus you're just speaking for a business, I think it can go either way. In my experience, building a personal brand is much easier and faster. You are now tied to the brand, but it is 10 times easier to connect with somebody when your face is there and you're a person. I was saying all this stuff behind the Worst of All, you know, my company brand, the Worst of All design brand, and it was doing fine. But the second I put my face on it and made it the Pia Silva brand was the second that I just noticed the difference. People just believed it more. They trusted it more because there was a face to trust. So if, you know, it depends what your goals are. If you are like trying to sell this business and you definitely don't want to be a part of it, in the near future, you probably shouldn't do it based on your face. But I don't feel that way. I just want like a lifestyle business that I enjoy, that allows me to do lots of different interesting things. So I decided to put my face on it.
And I mean, I agree as well. Like, I know for me, it was kind of, I think I was at a point early on where I was hiding behind kind of like, this is what we do. And this is what, and I kept saying a lot of we when it was maybe like a team of me and one other.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, like technically, yes, it's we, but it's more me. And then the other person helped out. So
Right.
now it's more of like I actually have a team behind a lot of this. But I am now really pushing that face. Like I am the go-to person. Like a lot of people know me as the go-to bot person, like the chat bot person.
I know you
And
as
like,
that.
sure, we do other things, but that's like the main thing we talk about. And a lot of, at least what I talk about, is like having conversations that deepen relationships with people, because that leads to business. And, that's at least helped my philosophy on a lot of that. So I understand what you're saying with the whole separating yourself, and it takes off faster with a person behind it. I feel like I unintentionally did that at one point in time, but I'm curious then, if should someone, I guess I don't know how to ask this, should someone really get a personal brand going first? I know it's really
Right.
based on goals, but let's say they want to be, they're really kind of afraid of the spotlight, but they know they don't necessarily want to sell it. They wanted to keep something within themselves. How would they go about really building that personal brand?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it's a lifestyle business that you want and it's based on your expertise, and your goal is not to build a big company with employees where you're going to back
Right.
away from it, I think you got to suck it up. This is your business. And one of the most important skills in a business, a business does not exist without sales and marketing. So when it's
Right.
just you are sales and marketing. And you know what? That requires you to show up. And I'm sorry, but if you're an entrepreneur, you need to show up. And it's okay to be scared. Believe me, I used to hate photos. I used to hate, you would never believe this. I used to terrified of being on stage, like all these things. Really, I mean, you can't find a photo of me on Facebook before 2016 when I said, oh, wait a second, I need to use my personal brand to market this. Okay. And now there's photos of me everywhere. And I had to get over that. And I did a lot of personal work in order to overcome that. I did a lot of coaching around speaking on stages and stuff. I spoke on a lot of stages that I was terrified to speak on, but I got over those fears, and it has given me the business and life that I want. So that's what I really encourage people to do. Like, it's okay to be scared. I call them badass brands, not because everyone who comes in is, kicking ass and taking names. It's because they're willing to do things that are scary. Like, that's the guts that I'm talking about. You don't have to already be this person. You have to be willing to push yourself to eventually go in that direction.
I love that. And that brings up something that just kind of brought something to my mind. And what would you say so has there ever been a point, like, let's say that same person who was like scared to really be on the forefront, does their brand really separate, like personal brand really separate from their personality? Or is that something that you really want to tie it together?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people struggle with that. So here's my maybe contrarian take. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen other people say this. In order to be authentic, you actually can't just share everything about you, in my opinion.
Right.
In order to have an authentic personal brand, one that feels authentic, there has to be consistency in your message and how you show up. So it's not like, here I am doing whatever I'm doing all the time, and here's everything about my life. That's going to be a mishmash of things, because we are multifaceted people with all kinds of things going on. But a strong personal brand is going to be the piece of you that makes sense for what you're selling and how you want to show up, and doing that thing consistently over and over and over again. So my brand has this, contrarian, like kind of aggressive but fun thing going on. Like, that's very me, it's not that that's not me, but I'm also like not getting out of bed and watching Netflix all day. Like, I am not always like that. That's not necessarily part of the brand. So I'm not really showing that much, because it's just not going to help my people or the message that I'm sending. So it's not inauthentic. Right. But it's not inauthentic, but it's not going to be your whole self. It's definitely a trimmed down version that's very exaggerated.
Okay. So I love that answer, because I know I feel like a lot of people can run into that. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you've run into that with a lot of people too. It's like, well, I'm not being myself, my full self. You know, like,
Right.
well, it does, that part of you isn't helpful to what you're trying to do. And I love how you answered that. So I was just out of curiosity, because I know that just like popped in my head when you mentioned that. And I was like, oh, I wonder what your thoughts on this were.
I think lots of people get confused by that, because personal brand and authentic, well, that just sounds like you should be showing
like share everything about yourself.
Yeah. In fact, you're not being honest if you don't share everything. Like, no.
And I feel like there's a slight caveat to that, of saying like, it's not that you're, I guess, happy-go-lucky all the time. Let's say like that happens to be your brand. You're not happy-go-lucky all the time, but you can show like the ups and downs, but you're in that part of yourself as opposed to like everything.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes, of course. I mean, there is a time and a place and a way to show up and show the different facets of you. I will show up on my Instagram stories, for example, and talk about waking up and like not wanting to do anything. I'm a generally like very motivated, active person, but I'll share that because I know other people feel that way, and I have the ways that I deal with that. So maybe that'll be helpful. I don't show up when, somebody in my family dies, like that's not part of my brand, and it doesn't need to be. And those are things that I keep private for my family. And I think that's okay. And some people, and it's not that you shouldn't show up for those things. It might make sense for your brand or how you show up to talk about those things, but it's kind of, you have to decide what it includes and what it doesn't.
And I've heard this before. It's saying, usually it's something that's, I guess people have called it like battle scars. It's kind of like a scar that's healed. So you're able to show the emotion of how you dealt with it, rather than like feeling in the moment of it and then not really being, I guess, your brand. Does that make sense?
Right. Just show up all hot mess one day and like, I don't know what's going on.
Because then that's definitely completely inconsistent to what you generally show. And it's not saying like, well, I'm showing my full self, but it's showing like, once you've actually overcome it, you're like, hey, that was a hard time, and you're showing authentically how you overcame it. And I think that helps resonate with a lot of people, and really, a personal brand wise, it sounds like that really does allow you to connect with people more and show them that you are real, you are still a person behind all of this, But I do like how you put that. It's not. You don't have to show your full self, but as long as I don't want to say like benefits, but it helps your
audience, Yeah. I mean, the if you want to really think about what to show and not show in your personal brand, think about it from your audience's perspective, and what do they need from you, and what will be helpful to them or not. Because there might be things that you're like, should I show this? Well, is it furthering your message and what your tribe is looking for and what they need help with? If not, maybe it's just fluff.
Well, okay, that's perfect. That's a great way to help identify that. So I know we're kind of running up to our time here. So I feel like I talked to you about this for hours, but if we wanted to kind of find out more and really start to help people to move past this and really just help them badass their brand, really, like where can they go to really find out more?
All badass their brand. Well, what's top of mind right now is that I'm launching my podcast actually in a couple of weeks. So I'm super excited about that. And it's called Show Your Business Who's Boss. So you better believe we're going to be talking about badassing your brand. So you can go to my website, piasilva.com. I've got some free courses on there and other things, but you can go sign up to get the alert when I go live. And that might be a nice place to start.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. And then I guess as a final closing note, what would you say to anyone that at this point in time, I know with a lot of things going on, there's a lot of creative action being taken by a lot of people to really pivot and whatnot. Is it okay to kind of go a little off brand if something is not the way they've done it before, but it helps their audience right now, or in that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, why would that be off-brand?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
I don't
I
know.
think maybe, you know what would be off brand? So let's talk about what's going on. I'm a business, I talk about business, branding and marketing and all these things. You know what I don't talk about? Health. If I wrote an email and was telling people they need to wash their hands and, giving them all sorts of advice about their health, that would be off brand. Would that help my audience? Maybe, but there are other people who should talk about that, and it's not me. So you're right. There are ways that you might think you're being helpful, but it's not actually helpful, because who am I to tell you about that? That's not what I'm not that authority to you as my audience. So I'm really not going to be helpful talking about that. So I shouldn't. It's okay to mention it. I hope you guys are all healthy. I did a Facebook Live right after, shit hit the fan. And I started talking about, like, look, I care about, my audience. I hope you guys are happy and healthy. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Like, go find people to talk about that. Plenty of people are talking about that. You should go talk to them. I'm going to talk about your business because that's what I talk about, So that, to me, that was me trying to be authentic.
No, I absolutely love it. So it's, again, relating back to, like, does this actually help your audience for what they know you for?
Right.
And not necessarily does it just help them.
Exactly.
It's like, I could talk about, like, family things too.
I've got some great recipes I could share.
But it's like, it has nothing to do with what
irrelevant.
people know me for. Yeah. So I love that. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you,
do
Victor.
appreciate it. And yeah, I hope we stay in touch. And for everyone listening, if you're anything like me, you're definitely wanting to follow Pia, because she's super helpful with everything that she provides to everyone. So
I appreciate
head on over to
that,
piasilva.com, get some stuff. And, if you haven't gotten her book, what are you doing? Like, go get her book now.
Yes.
For sure.
Oh yeah. On my website, if you go to writing, you can grab the first chapter for free. So you can get a little taste of it. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Victor with Ventabot, and I'll see you guys next time.